We know he's outside. If you don't do this, you'll never see him again.
No, please, I'll do anything.
Then take it.
You got your dinner. Stay safe tonight. I know, Mama.
I made it for you.
I know, Mijo. I know.
Together. Okay, Mom. Okay, Mom.
At 2:13 in the morning, while I was cleaning spilled champagne from the marble floor of a law firm high above downtown Toronto, my 10-year-old son called and whispered, "Mom, I'm outside. Please don't be mad." For a second, I could not understand him. Outside where? Then I heard the rain through his phone, hard and steady, and the sound of his breathing, trying not to become crying. "Gabe, where are you?" I asked, already pulling off my rubber gloves. "By the laundry room door," he said. "Someone touched our apartment handle again." I waited like you said, but then it moved twice. I got scared. My son was standing outside our basement apartment in Scarborough at 2 in the morning, wearing his school hoodie and socks, because his winter boots were still drying beside the heater. 30 floors above Bay Street, I dropped my cloth into a bucket clouded with dirty water and ran toward the elevators. Behind me, the remains of the firm's celebration glittered under soft gold lighting. Half-full glasses, linen napkins, untouched desserts, and a large banner above the reception wall that read "Family comes first." I pressed the elevator button once, then again, as if panic could make it arrive faster. "Marisol." Alan Mercer's voice came from behind me. He stood near the boardroom doors in his charcoal overcoat, holding a clipboard against his chest. "Where are you going?" "My son is outside alone. I have to get home." He did not ask whether Gabe was safe. He did not even look concerned. His eyes moved to the unfinished floor behind me. "Executive level must be completed before 5:30. He is 10 years old," I said. My voice sounded strange, too quiet for the fear inside me. "He is standing outside in the rain." Alan stepped between me and the elevator as its doors opened. "Leave now, and I remove you from next month's schedule. All of it." The elevator doors waited behind him, bright and empty. In my pocket, Gabe whispered, "Mom?" Rent was due in 11 days. Our hydro notice was already folded under a coffee mug at home. I closed my eyes and called Denise, the woman upstairs, begging her to find my boy and bring him inside. Until she answered, I stood beneath that golden sign with my phone pressed to my ear and my mop dripping onto Italian marble. 8 minutes later, Denise said Gabe was safe, shivering on her sofa, apologizing because his wet socks had marked her floor. I went back to work. At dawn, Alan handed me my timesheet. 3 overtime hours were missing. "Sign it," he said. "You chose to stay, Marisol." So clearly it was not a real emergency. I looked at the line where my name belonged, and for the first time since coming to Canada, I understood that the building was not the only thing I had been cleaning at night. I had been erasing myself from my son's life, one shift at a time. By the time I reached Denise's apartment, the sky above Scarborough had turned the color of wet concrete. My uniform still smelled of floor cleaner and old champagne, and the timesheet Alan had forced into my hand was folded inside my coat pocket like something shameful. Denise opened the door before I knocked. She did not say good morning. She simply stepped aside and looked toward her sofa. Gabe was curled beneath a knitted blanket, his knees pulled to his chest. His school hoodie was still damp at the shoulders. On the small radiator beside him, his socks had been spread carefully to dry. They looked impossibly small. He kept saying he was sorry, Denise whispered. "Sorry for waking me. Sorry for getting the carpet wet. Sorry for calling you." I could not answer. I crossed the room and knelt beside my son. When I touched his hair, he opened his eyes immediately, as though he had never truly been asleep. "Did you lose your job?" he asked. "Not. Are you happy to see me?" "Not. Can we go home?" At 10 years old, my son's first question was whether his fear had cost us rent money. "No," I said. "I am still working." Relief passed over his face so quickly it frightened me. He sat up and reached for a reusable grocery bag tucked under the sofa. Inside were a phone charger, a granola bar, his health card, one clean shirt, and the small flashlight I used when the power flickered in our basement unit. "What is this?" I asked. Gabe lowered his eyes. "My emergency bag, in case I have to leave again." The room went quiet except for the radiator clicking against the cold. I had left the Philippines when he was 4 years old because I believed distance could buy him a future. For 3 years, I cleaned another family's kitchen, lifted another woman's elderly mother from bed, and watched my own little boy grow through a cracked video screen every Sunday. When I finally brought him to Toronto, he ran through Pearson Airport and wrapped both arms around my waist so tightly I promised him the waiting was over. I had not understood that Canada could separate us without an ocean. All it needed was a night shift, a basement door, and bills that arrived faster than my paycheck. Back in our apartment, I found an envelope pushed beneath the door. The landlord had raised our rent by $180 a month beginning in January. Gabe saw the number before I could hide it. He looked at the notice, then at my uniform, then carefully folded his emergency bag and placed it beside his bed. "Next time," he said, trying to sound brave, "I will not call you, Mom. I know where to go now." That night, I left Gabe at Denise's apartment before my shift began. She had offered without being asked, and I accepted before pride could make another mistake for me. Gabe carried his emergency bag against his chest as if it were something ordinary, like a lunchbox or a library book. At the door, he gave me a quick hug and said, "Do not worry, Mom. I will be quiet." Quiet. That was what my son thought I needed from him. Downtown, the tower on Bay Street glowed against the rain like a place built for people who never checked the price of milk. When I entered through the service corridor, Alan handed me a new assignment sheet. 3 extra floors. No explanation. "I cannot stay late tonight," I told him. "My son is with a neighbor." He glanced at my name badge, not my face. "Then work faster." Upstairs, the law firm had posted photographs from the gala on a television screen in reception. Smiling partners stood beneath the gold banner, "Family comes first," holding glasses of sparkling wine while a caption praised their commitment to working parents. Then the photograph changed. For half a second, I saw myself in the far corner, on my knees beside a cleaning bucket, my face turned downward as I wiped their footprints from the marble. I had been close enough to appear in their celebration, but not important enough to be seen. In the break room, Farah counted the hours written on her pay stub twice, then folded it quickly when Alan passed the doorway. Tomas sat beside her, eating rice from a plastic container. "They removed 4 hours from me last week," Farah said quietly when he was gone. "My father had a medical appointment." I asked one question, and Alan gave my Saturday shift to someone else. Tomas gave a tired laugh, without humor. "My daughter thinks I work in one of these offices." I let her believe it. It sounds better than telling her I clean the toilets after midnight. I took my own pay stub from my pocket. 3 hours missing from the night Gabe had stood outside in wet socks. The numbers no longer looked like a mistake. They looked like a system. Near midnight, I found Alan beside the supply room and held out my timesheet. "These hours are wrong." He looked at it, then returned it without touching the paper. "Be careful, Marisol. Some mothers would do anything for the hours I give you." Behind him, the reception screen changed again. The golden words appeared over smiling faces. "Family comes first." My phone vibrated in my pocket. A message from Denise said Gabe had fallen asleep holding his packed emergency bag. 3 days later, Gabe placed a folded sheet of paper beside my untouched coffee before leaving for school. He had drawn a tiny yellow star in the corner, the way he used to when he wanted me to notice something important. It was an invitation to the Grade 5 science showcase on Friday morning. Beneath the printed details, he had written in careful pencil, "My project has a surprise for you." I read it twice, then carried it with me to work inside the pocket of my uniform. That evening, before my shift began, I found Alan in the service corridor reviewing schedules. "I need to leave at 6 on Friday morning," I said. "My son has a school presentation." He sighed as if I had asked for something unreasonable. "Finish your assigned floors, and there should not be a problem." I held on to those words for 2 nights. On Thursday, I bought Gabe a small box of butter tarts from the grocery store and a blue ribbon from the dollar shop. I could not afford a real celebration, but I imagined his smile when he saw me standing beside his project. At 9:30 that night, Alan handed me a revised sheet. The executive floor had hosted an emergency client reception. Glassware, food trays, conference rooms, washrooms. All of it had to be perfect before morning. "You said I could leave at 6, I reminded him. He adjusted his cuff without looking at me. I said, "Finish your floors." Walking away from an unfinished assignment is abandonment of duty. I worked until my shoulders burned. I scrubbed coffee rings from polished tables and collected crumpled napkins from beneath leather chairs. At 6:10, I ran for the subway with my coat unbuttoned and the box of butter tarts pressed against my chest. The rain slowed every train, every bus, every minute I had promised my son. When I reached his school, parents were already leaving the gymnasium carrying paper projects and winter coats. Gabe stood beside a cardboard model of a small apartment building covered in silver foil. A tiny solar panel sat on the roof. Inside one paper window, a yellow light glowed. His teacher smiled sadly. Gabriel designed a backup light for children who are home alone after dark. He kept the chair beside him empty for you. Gabe looked at the butter tarts in my hand, then at my damp uniform. "It is okay, Mom," he said. "Your building needed you." On the bus home, he held his project on his lap and watched the city pass in silence. That night, I heard him in his room speaking softly on a video call with a classmate. "My mother does not miss things on purpose," he said. "She just belongs to her job at night." I stood outside his door with the blue ribbon still in my pocket, and for the first time, I wished he had been angry instead. The blue ribbon stayed in my uniform pocket for the next 2 shifts. Every time my hand brushed against it, I saw Gabe standing beside his glowing paper apartment, protecting me from the truth by saying my building needed me. On Sunday night, Alan sent me below the lobby to the Northline storage room because the executive washrooms were running low on supplies. I had never been given the key before. The room smelled of cardboard, bleach, and damp winter coats. Shelves of paper towels lined one wall. On a metal desk near the back, a printer was still humming, a stack of schedules resting in its tray. I should have taken the supply box and left. Instead, I saw my name, Marisol de la Cruz. 52 hours listed beneath it for the previous week. My pay statement had shown 39. I turned the page. Farah's name. Tomas's name. Hours I had watched them work. Hours that had disappeared before reaching their bank accounts. My fingers began to shake as I used my phone to photograph each page. Then I found a billing sheet for August. My employee number appeared beside 3 overnight shifts I knew I had never worked. That was the week Gabe had been sick with a high fever, the week I had spent 2 nights beside him at Scarborough Health Network with a paper cup of cold tea in my hands. Northline had billed the building for my labor while I was sitting beside my child in a hospital chair. They were not only taking hours from me, they were using my name to sell work I had never done. Marisol. I nearly dropped the pages. Nadine Shin stood in the doorway, holding an empty coffee cup. Her expression changed when she saw my face. "Are you all right?" I wanted to say yes. Yes was the word people like me carried everywhere, even when our rent increased, even when our children stopped expecting us to show up. But I looked down at the photograph glowing on my phone and whispered, "I do not think I am." Nadine did not touch the papers. She did not ask me to hand over proof. She took a business card from her wallet and placed it on the desk. "There is a legal clinic on University Avenue that helps workers without charging them. Before you speak to anyone here, save everything somewhere they cannot take it." I slipped the card behind Gabe's ribbon and finished my shift with my phone pressed deep inside my coat. When I arrived home, the apartment was silent. Gabe's backpack was gone. His emergency bag was gone. On the table, beneath the unopened butter tarts, was a note in his handwriting. "I did not call because you need your job." I do not remember closing the apartment door behind me. I only remember the sound of rain tapping against the basement window and the note shaking in my hand. Gabe had taken his backpack, his emergency bag, and the small flashlight. He had not taken his winter boots. I called Denise first. She had not seen him. I called his school friend's mother, then the community center, then every number saved in my phone that might know where a quiet 10-year-old boy would go before sunrise. No one had seen him. I ran through the building in my damp work shoes, calling his name softly at first, then louder as panic took over. In the shared laundry room at the end of the basement hallway, one dryer was turning slowly, its warm light flashing through the round glass door. Gabe was curled on a plastic chair beside it, his backpack beneath his head and his emergency bag hugged against his chest. For one terrible moment, I could only stand there and look at him. He had chosen the laundry room because it was warmer than our apartment doorway and close enough that I would eventually find him. When I touched his shoulder, he woke with a frightened breath. "I am sorry, Mom," he said immediately. "I did not want you to leave work again." I sat on the cold tile floor and pulled him against my coat. His cheek rested against the name badge still pinned to my uniform. "Why did you come down here alone?" I asked. Gabe stared at the spinning dryer. "When I am not in the apartment, nobody can try the door because of me. And you do not have to come home." The words entered me quietly. No shouting. No blame. That made them worse. I had crossed an ocean so my son could feel safe, and he had learned that safety meant making himself easier to leave behind. I kept him home from school that morning and sat beside him until he slept in his own bed. Then I placed Nadine's business card, the blue ribbon, and my phone inside my coat pocket and went back downtown. I was no longer going to ask Alan about missing hours. I was going to show someone what he had done. But when I entered the service corridor, Alan was waiting beside the supply room. My locker stood open behind him. My phone lay on the desk beside a printed disciplinary form. "You photographed confidential documents," he said, "and a client reported missing property from a meeting room you cleaned." I looked at the paper. At the bottom was a blank line for my signature. "Sign this, and I may keep you on limited shifts," he said. "Refuse, and you are finished here tonight." For years, fear had held the pen for me. This time, I left it on the desk. "You already took my nights," I said. "You do not get my name too." Alan slid my phone across the desk as though returning something that had always belonged to him. Then he removed my access card from the lanyard around my neck and placed it beside the disciplinary form I had refused to sign. "Collect your belongings," he said. "Use the service exit." For 9 years in Canada, I had learned how to leave places quietly. I had left the Philippines with one suitcase and a sleeping child's photograph tucked inside my passport. I had left caregiving homes before sunrise so families would not see how tired I was. Every morning, I left that glass tower through a loading dock that smelled of cardboard and melting snow, invisible even after cleaning 30 floors of other people's lives. But that morning, with Gabe's words still living inside me, I put my uniform coat on, lifted my small bag from the open locker, and walked past the service elevator. Alan followed me into the corridor. "The exit is downstairs." I pressed the button marked lobby. I know. When the doors opened, the marble floor shone beneath winter light. Office workers were arriving with paper cups of coffee and wool coats dusted with rain. The Golden Family Comes First banner was still hanging above reception, smaller in daylight, almost embarrassed by itself. I stepped into the center of that lobby wearing the blue uniform everyone usually saw only after midnight. Alan reached me just as Nadine Shun came through the revolving doors. She looked at my bag, then at the broken lanyard in my hand. "What happened?" she asked. Alan answered before I could. "This is a personnel matter." Nadine did not look at him. "Marisol." My phone was cold in my palm. I unlocked it, but the photographs were gone. Every image of the schedules, every billing sheet carrying my employee number, erased. Alan's mouth barely moved, but I saw the satisfaction in his face. "He took them," I said. "He deleted everything." Nadine guided me into a vacant meeting room near reception and closed the glass door. "Did your phone back up photographs automatically?" she asked. I thought of Gabe sitting at our kitchen table months earlier, frustrated because I had lost photos from his school trip. He had installed something and told me never to worry again. My hands trembled as I opened the cloud account. The first image appeared slowly, then the next. My name. 52 hours. Farah's hours. Tomas's hours. The false shifts billed while I sat beside Gabe at the hospital. I covered my mouth with one hand. Not because I was relieved. Because my son had saved evidence of my stolen time without ever knowing he was doing it. Nadine called Farah and Tomas. An hour later, they entered through the front doors, not the loading dock. Farah placed her pay statements on the table. Tomas placed his saved messages beside them. Nadine read the contract number printed on the billing sheets, then looked up. "If these records are accurate, Northline did not only steal wages," she said. "They may have committed contract fraud against this entire building." Beyond the glass wall, Alan stood beneath the golden banner, watching the people he had kept invisible finally put their names on the table. By noon, the meeting room table was covered with the kind of papers nobody notices until they explain why rent was late, why groceries were smaller, why children learn not to ask for new boots. Nadine helped us contact a workers' legal clinic, and before the afternoon ended, formal complaints had been filed with our photographs, pay statements, access records, and Alan's messages attached. Farah kept apologizing each time her voice shook. Tomas kept smoothing the same corner of his pay stub until the paper softened beneath his fingers. I understood both of them. Speaking did not feel brave at first. It felt dangerous. For the next 12 days, I did not work. I counted coins for transit fare. I served Gabe rice with fried egg twice in 1 week and pretended it was because he liked it. He did not mention the empty space where my uniform used to hang by the door. He only began coming straight home after school, as if staying close might keep another part of our life from disappearing. Then, on a gray Tuesday morning, Nadine called. The building access system confirmed the nights we had worked. Security footage showed Alan removing my phone from the locker area and carrying it into his office. The billing files matched the schedules saved in my cloud account. Northline had suspended him and begun repayment calculations for every cleaner affected. 2 days later, an envelope arrived by courier. Inside was an offer for me to return as night shift team lead. My hourly wage would rise. My schedule would be guaranteed. There would be benefits after probation. I sat at our kitchen table reading the numbers again and again. With that job, I could pay the rent increase. I could replace Gabe's worn winter boots. I could stop holding my breath whenever the mailbox opened. When he came home, he placed his science project on the table. His teacher had entered it in a district showcase. The little silver apartment still had its yellow window, but he had taped a new title across the cardboard base. A home where someone comes back before dark. Is it too childish? He asked. I looked at the offer letter beside the overdue hydro bill. For years, I had believed love meant taking whatever work kept food in the cupboard, even if it kept me away from the person I was feeding. Gabe was watching me carefully, prepared to say he understood whatever I chose. That was the part one could no longer accept. The next morning, I thanked Northline for returning what they had taken, then declined the position. With my resume folded inside my coat, I took the bus to Scarborough Health Network and applied for a daytime environmental services job. The pay was slightly lower than Northline's offer. The hours ended before Gabe came home from school. For the first time in years, I signed my own name beneath a choice that did not require my son to be alone. 3 months later, I unlocked the door to our new apartment just before 4 in the afternoon, still wearing my hospital uniform and carrying a paper bag of groceries against my hip. The job at Scarborough Health Network was not easier. Floors still needed scrubbing. Waste bins still filled faster than I could empty them. My back still ached by the end of every shift. But each day, when I walked out beneath the pale winter sky, the sun had not disappeared yet. Gabe was still at school. I was going home to wait for him. Northline eventually returned the wages it had withheld from me, along with the hours billed under my name. Farah sent me a photograph of her father holding the medication she could finally afford. Tomas called one Sunday to say he had told his daughter the truth about his work, and she had replied that she was proud of him anyway. Alan was no longer supervising anyone. I did not ask what happened after that. There were some doors I no longer needed to stand outside. Our new apartment was small, on the second floor above a bakery near Kennedy Road. It had 1 bedroom for Gabe and a pull-out sofa for me, but the windows looked out toward trees instead of muddy shoes passing at street level. That evening, I made chicken arroz caldo while snow began falling beyond the glass. Gabe sat at the table repairing the cardboard roof of his science project. The little yellow light inside the model flickered, then came on. "It still works," he said. "So do we," I answered, and his smile was quiet but real. Later, when the dishes were drying, I found him standing near the front door with the old wooden chair in his hands. For a moment, neither of us spoke. He had carried that habit from the basement apartment, from the nights he had believed a chair and a flashlight were all the protection he could expect. Slowly, he looked at me. Then together, we returned the chair to the kitchen table. "Can we leave the light on tonight?" he asked. I looked at the hydro bill on the counter, newly paid, stamped with a balance of 0. "Yes," I said. "Tonight, we leave it on." I sat beside his bed until his breathing grew soft and even. Outside, Toronto was covered in snow, every street lamp blurred gold against the dark. I had once believed a better life would look like the towers I cleaned after midnight, high above the city, bright and unreachable. I was wrong. A better life was smaller. A warm meal, a paid bill, a chair returned to its place, a boy asleep without an emergency bag beside him. My dream had changed shape. It was no longer perfect. It was no longer distant. But under the kitchen light that stayed on through the night, it was finally ours.